Hi guys, Shelley Penney here with Twisted Fish Artisan Jewelry. I hope you're doing well. It's a beautiful fall day and I'm really excited to be here today with you and Jesse James Beads to show you some wire writing in a beautiful Christmas ornament or Christmas tag that you can use. I've been making a lot of Christmas ornaments lately and other things, just getting ready for Christmas. I have a couple of markets coming up as well as an open house. And I find that people love to see things other than jewelry when they come to my shows. So I tend to make a lot of jewelry, but I also make a lot of other things as well. And I have a lot of fun designing little ornaments and different things for the holidays. So today I'm going to be showing you a design that I did for, it's a Christmas design, non-traditional colors, very pretty. And I did some wire writing with it as well. So I'm going to show you the project. There's a project called Hope. And there it is, if you can see it. It's an ornament about the size of the palm of my hand. And in the center, we've got Hope written there in wire. I'm going to show you how to make this in completion. The first thing is, can't forget our Jesse James Beads mix in Stone Age. I don't know if you can see that or not. There's a bit of a, there we go, in Stone Age. Bit of a glare there. This is a beautiful mix. I'm going to be dumping it out in the shell here in a second to show you. And you're also going to need some 20 gauge wire. I have about a foot here of 20 gauge wire for writing the words. And then a little bit of 26 gauge wire. We're going to do a little tiny bit of wire wrapping, not a whole lot. Aside from the Jesse James bead mix, you're going to want to get a few seed beads. I've got some 4mm check glass beads, just 6 or 8 of them. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of them, so that is 6 or 8. And some memory wire. And of course your tools, you're going to need your wire cutters, the bail making pliers if you want, or some round nose pliers. All right, so let's talk about this mix and get ready. This is a gorgeous mix. I was so excited to see this come across my desk. So I've already, as you can see, I've got the project made. So I'm going to pick out the beads that I need here. We've got one of these. I'm going to use one of these rose charms. We'll just set that up beside here. And you know what? I'm just going to cut my memory wire and then we'll pick out the beads as we need them. So the first thing I'm going to do, I always make my loop here on the memory wire before I cut it. So I'm going to make the loop on the top of the memory wire sort of perpendicular to the curve of the wire. So you can see it's like that. And then I'm going to take and just center that loop a little bit. So there we go. And I didn't bring, let me see if I have I forgot to bring my memory wire cutters down here to the office with me. So I'm just going to use some of my old cutters. Never want to use your good wire cutters on memory wire. Definitely not. Because memory wire will ruin your cutters. I've actually ruined a couple pair already before I knew any better. So we've got a loop there of memory wire. I'm going to start putting on some beads. Make the frame for our writing. So are you guys all set for Christmas? It has been exceptionally warm here. You know, I find it hard to get into the Christmas mood when when it's nice out, when it's warm above 0. Didn't even need a jacket today. I was out foraging for mushrooms, believe it or not, in November here in Canada. We often have snow at this point, not always, but I have found that the last 4 or 5 years we have weather that is sort of cooler in the spring than I've been used to in the past and warmer in the fall. I don't know if any of you guys have noticed any difference in your weather patterns or not, but and it could be just cyclical. You know, sometimes it's hard to know if it's a trend or not. These beads I find, oh, that one went on perfectly. I love these. beads. I don't know what you call them, but they sort of have holes all around. They're hollow inside. So I found earlier that it's not always perfectly easy to get the wire through the hole there. But there. You know, I don't often design with earthy colors like this, and I really like it. I found that Christmas decorations and things in stores, in the little shops that I go to where people are crafting their own decorations and stuff, I found a lot of these really down-to-earth colors, natural materials like wood, metal, of course. But you don't often see wood in the traditional past. You don't see wood a lot in Christmas ornaments. You tend to see a lot of, you know, reds and greens and stuff like that. Check out these ceramic beads. Love these. Very, very pretty. Anyways, over the years I haven't tended to notice a lot of wood in the decorations. There's also a possibility they just haven't paid attention, because I tend in the past to not have been super observant about these kinds of things before I was designing jewelry and other things for people to buy. I pay a little bit more attention now. This mix has such a beautiful array of textures, the lava stone and the metal. One of the things I love so much about Jesse James beads is the fact that I don't have to buy a whole ton of different things to get a lot of different beads and spacers and metal dibbly bobs that all go together. Jesse James does all the hard work for me, and all I have to do is put them together. Everything matches. I love that. Sometimes I just don't want to think about what goes with what. The other thing is, in my bead stash, I have everything set aside in colors. So I have browns in one container and whites in another and metals in another. And so I find when I'm designing that I often have to go get like 8 or 10 different containers to find the beads that I want. And they're not always right there in front of you either. So sometimes it's hard to find that perfect mix when you're digging through a whole bunch of different containers of things. So Jesse James Beads always has your back in that regard. I definitely don't have to do a whole lot of thinking. I just have to take these beautiful beads and put them together in a way that's appealing. So that's kind of nice. Okay, I think I have everything here on my memory wire. I have to make sure. I tend to, when I'm talking, sometimes miss beads, but it looks like I've got everything there. I'm sure somebody will tell me if I don't. Okay, so because I have this loop going sort of horizontal, I'm going to do this loop on this end vertically so that they can hook together. All right, so I want it to be snug but not firm. Now, some people will cut first and then bend the wire, but I tend to bend it around first, cut it, and then tweak. All right, so I'm just taking, I've got a really good grip here on my round nose pliers, and I'm about halfway up. I'm going to push the memory wire around until we're about, you know, we got half that loop formed right there. Now I'm going to come in with my heavy duty cutters and I'm going to snip right there. That just lets me get the right size, and also I can, this is where I hook it up there now. All right, did you see that? Now I'm going to finish that loop. I really like working with memory wire for especially things like ornaments, because they're going to get a lot of handling. So the memory wire is not going to lose its shape when, you know, when the ornaments get put away in boxes and stuff like that. All right, so you see I have the two wires and they are perpendicular to each other and they sit in there just perfectly. I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller. There we go. And the reason for that will become evident later. Okay. So, there we go. We have the frame. Now I'm just going to set that aside for a second. So what I do, I used to draw out my lettering and then trace it. I want to do a continuous piece of wire, obviously, from one end to the other. And I have to think about how I'm going to anchor it on either side. So this one, originally I was going to anchor it here, and then I thought I liked this swirly up here to sort of balance off the H on this side. So I would just sometimes go like this and just measure the width that I'm going to need for my words. Okay, so I want a little bit of space there and a little bit over here. I mean, right there. I want to try and fit my words as much as possible in that space. So here's how I do that. All right. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than that. But the reason I drew that out, I don't always, but sometimes I just want to make sure that I can do it in a continuous line and it's going to look good. All right. So now I'm going to grab my 20 gauge, just run it through my fingers a little bit to start with, especially the part that I'm going to be working with up here. I do have a pair of nylon jaw pliers here too, and I use my nylon jaw a lot. Some people will just, you know, straighten with their fingers, but if you like to have, you know, I tend to hold my wire a little bit tightly, let's say. And so it's easy for me to get a little bend somewhere that I don't want a little bend. All right. So I don't mind using my nylon jaw pliers. Okay, so I'm going to start at one end. I'm going to leave myself a little bit of space here before I start the loop of the H. I want the loop to be, you know, about halfway. I'm about halfway down my round nose pliers. And I'm not going to go tight around, but you can see where I'm just sort of loosely using the pliers to just sort of guide the wire. And just warm this up a little bit. And then I'm going to take my needle nose. I think I'm very prepared. I was working out in the living room this morning, and all my good tools are out there, but I have lots of tools here in the office too. Okay, so I've got the loop there. Let's see how big I want this. Really, if I don't have the guide already to go by, then I'll take this. I'm just going to just hold it up and say, all right, how do I want this to fall? I'm going to make sure it's centered. And I think probably the H right about there is long enough. So I'm going to bend that up. And then just come in here with my fingers, bend it the rest of the way. Like this. And then I'm going to use I want this to sort of fall directly in line here. Okay, so I'm going to sort of hide them together like that so that they're perpendicular to one another, and when you're looking at it from the front, it's just going to look like a straight line. So I'm just going to use my pliers to tighten this up a little bit, just very gently. Sometimes I'll just go very gently so that I don't distort the wire too much. All right. All right. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I don't worry over much about, I'm just going to pull this out a little bit here until I make the loop and then I'll pull it back. I don't worry over much if it's perfectly straight or perfectly symmetrical. I like a little bit of an organic look. Handwriting is never 100% perfect the way they taught in school. It's not computer generated, it's hand generated, right? So I am going to make the H. So notice how I pulled that out a little bit here so I can get my pliers in. And this time I'm going to go all the way to the top. I want the H to be a little bit wider. And I'm not, I'm just sort of gently going, I just want to get a gentle curve going here first. And then tuck this back in like that. And look at it. How is that? Is that how I want it? It's a little bit high. So I'm just going to take it and roll it down just a little bit. I don't want it too high. Okay. That looks good. So now we're going to go for the O. So for the O, I like to round it a little bit. So I just put my round nose pliers here, make sure I'm going to be fairly in line here, and then just pull this up very gently. How does that look? That looks good. Now the O, rather than, you know when you're writing an O with handwriting, you would normally come off the H and go up around and then back. I want a continuous circle, so I am going to now take my bail making pliers, which you totally don't need. You can use your round nose, but I want the O to be a little bit bigger than my round nose are at the end. So I think I'm going to use that loop there. I'm going to come out just a little bit. You can see I've got some space here. And then I'm just going to gently take that around till we have an O. Now, the P is going to come up like this. And I'm going to do the loop of the P first. So I don't have to come all the way up with that. I'm going to here like that, and then just start to turn that wire down. It's going to be fairly sharp. How long do I want it? About here looks good. Back up around. Now this time I'm going to let that loop of the P show a little bit. So I'm just going to come past it a little bit. The design of your letters is like totally up to you. I'm using my bail making pliers again so I can get this loop, and this time I want my loop to come up a little bit higher. Almost, I want it to be almost even with that O. So I'm going to come around like this. Before I make that circle completely, I'm just going to check it and make sure I like how that looks. So come up to here. Let's see how that looks. Pretty good. You might just need to adjust a little bit with your fingers. Let's see how we're doing for size here. I think we're doing good for size. There's still room for the E. I'll show you, I'm probably going to be a little bit too big. I'll show you what we do with that. This is a good time to adjust it. If you think it's going to be a little bit too big, you can just compress it here. There we go. Okay, let's go back and finish making this. Now we're going to go into the E. So I'm just going to let the wire slope down a little bit. I'm going to come in here with my bail making pliers. A little bit sort of got out of the, there we go. Okay. Now we want to, I'm doing it at a different angle so the camera can get it. So that's why I'm sort of fussing a little bit. Now that P, it's a little round for my liking, but that's okay. I'm going to take my pliers and I'm just going to flatten it here a little bit. All right, let's do the E. So for the E, I'm going to start it about halfway here in the loop of the P. So I'm just going to, almost a sharp angle, not quite though. All right, I'm going to flatten that out a little bit. Take my round nose again. Now E's, I like them to be a little bit flattened on the top rather than perfectly round. And then I want the bottom loop to come like this. There. One last measure. That is awful big. Okay, one last measure. Let's see how we did. Perfect. I like that. All right. So I want it to match the other one. So I'm just going to add a little bit of a design flair here. Nothing too serious. I'm just going to take that up a little bit. Make sure it's still going to fit in my design. I measure a lot, you'll find. So that's out a little bit. So I'm just going to move it up like that a little bit. Okay. And then I'll finish this upper part afterwards. Okay, so here's what we've got. Now I'm going to attach it. So it doesn't have to be attached in the exact same spot as I attached the other one, but it just happens to fall there quite nicely. So I think that's what's going to happen with that. All right, so here's what I do. I'm going to just decide where I'm going to attach it to the frame that we've created here. I want the bottom of the H to come right around here. All right, so I'm going to tuck this wire in between these two beads. First thing I'm going to do is start a little loop here, so it'll make it easier to bend around when the time comes. And then I'm going to take my, look at me, tools everywhere. I'm going to take my cutters and just trim this a little bit to make it a little bit easier to work with. So I'm going to come right in here. Where do we decide? Right about there. All right, so I'm going to hook that right in there. And once I have it in there a little bit, I'm going to employ the use of my pliers to just coax it in between the beads. This is where you have to be careful to not bend your pretty wire writing. So now I'm going to, now that I've got it in between the beads here, I'm just going to grab it here and just tuck it around one more time. There we go. And just, this is my pliers slipping. It's not going to be, just tuck it in there like that and trim that. That's perfect. All right, we have that sitting nicely right where we want it. The nice thing about 20 gauge artistic wire is that it's good and firm. I'm going to end up tucking that piece in a little bit. It's good and firm. Sometimes I like to embellish a little bit with some added crystals and stuff, but today I am just going to do this. I'm just adding a little bit of a flare here, just for some interest. And then I'm going to tuck this. Let's see. It wants to fall right around here. So you can tuck it in. I think I'm going to tuck it right where the other one is, so that they balance off. All right. So tuck it in there with your fingers. Get it around there. And then I'm going to take my pliers and just coax it in between those beads good and firm. You can take your fingernails to sort of separate the beads a little bit to give you a little bit of room to work. There we go. If it doesn't go right in between, it doesn't matter. Got to attach somewhere. Okay. That's good. Final adjustment right here. And I like that. Now, we have our nice words here. I wanted to fill something in up here to just sort of take up space. So I added another design element. I took one of these beautiful, I think I got it out here. There we go. One of these beautiful rose charms. I'm going to embellish that a little bit. So this is where I've got my 26 gauge artistic wire here. I'm just going to anchor it around I'm just going to anchor it around my rose here. Nails getting in the way. Nails getting in the way, but they're so pretty. All right. The other thing I forgot to bring down here was my mag eyes. So, there we go. All right. So just have that wire anchored there, and I'm going to add just a few beads to the outside of this beautiful rose to make it look like a little sunshine rose. All right, so I have it here. I'm just going to add a bead. And we're going to wrap. I know you can't see with my nails here, but I'm just holding it here with my finger. I'm going to wrap 2 times through here. And we're going to do 7 beads on here. All right. So are y'all ready for Christmas? I find that this year, last year I found that people were shopping really early. I find the same thing this year as well. People are shopping super early. So it ends up, I'm wondering, we're having our open house for Twisted Fish, and a friend of mine who does beautiful stained glass art is going to come down. She always does an open house with me. And we're doing it at the end of November. And I know there's still going to be some people who are shopping, but an awful lot of my friends and customers have been shopping for months. There's been a lot of media coverage on shipping issues and stuff like that. So a lot of people are worried. I think that their product isn't going to get here in time, their Christmas presents or whatever. So they've started real early. And I've already noticed differences in shipping. Sarah can tell you that my Jesse James Beads order, which came by courier and should have been here in just a few days, ended up taking a week and a half. And it'll get worse before it gets better, certainly over the Christmas season. I find Canada Post is usually pretty good, but there's nothing you can do about things that are being shipped from overseas and, being stocked in stores and stuff like that too. And I find even the things that I'm ordering from the States are taking a very long time to get here. Anyway, it is what it is. Thankfully, we all have this talent where we can make our gifts for people. And I love that, and other people love it too. My son decided last year that he no longer wanted Christmas presents at all. So we compromised a little bit and said, well, what if we make the presents for the family instead of buying? So what we did last year was each of us made a present for the other. There's only 4 of us, my son and my daughter, my husband and I, and then we add my husband's sister, who lives very close. She's our neighbor, and she's not married and doesn't have any children, so she spends holidays with us together, and we all exchange that way. So anyways, what we ended up doing was last year making gifts, and then each of us did a donation in the other person's name to a charity of our choice. And I really loved that because, as we're all adults now, my son has his own home. My daughter's been out on her own for 10 years now. And none of us really need anything. And, you don't want stuff that's just going to sit around and collect dust or whatever. We're not knick-knack kind of people. So people can always buy me beads, but I'm quite happy to buy my own beads too if somebody wants to make me something. Last year, my husband, I thought he might have the most difficult time finding something to make. But anyway, what he ended up making for me, I'm an avid gardener. He ended up making me a compost screener, which was so cool and so creative. And my son made some blueberry jam, which was really awesome. It was the first time preserving that kind of thing. And so that was kind of fun too. So while we are thinking of others and making these very thoughtful gifts, we're also stretching our creativity in ways that we never thought we would before. And I really like that. It just made for a very memorable, thoughtful Christmas. I'm trying to tuck in that wire. There we go. Okay, so we've embellished our little charm there. Now, I'm going to take another small piece of the... I'm just going to make a head pin here to connect this with. So I'm going to loop on this end. Just going to do a simple loop. And then we're going to center that like that. And we're going to hook into our charm here. There we go. Now I'm going to add a couple more beads to the top here, just for interest. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through our horizontal loop here, like this. I'm going to add another bead to the top. And I'm going to do a wrapped loop up here. So I'm going to take my pliers and bend over about 45 degrees. I'm going to come in here with my round nose about 2/3 of the way up my pliers. We're going to make a loop here. I'm going to flip my pliers that way to finish the loop, like so. And then I'm going to wrap this probably just twice, but we shall see. I just wrap it until it feels right. I like this to be fairly snug, but not too snug. These aren't my best. These are not my best pliers. Like I said, all my good tools are down in the living room where I was watching the leaves fall out my beautiful. I have a very nice view here. So I was watching the leaves fall. All right. I'm just going to trim that. I think I went 1.5 times around. I just wanted to get it just fairly snug. I'm going to tuck in a little bit. And we are done. So here we go. We have a beautiful ornament right there. Alrighty, now you can use this as an ornament, or as Sarah had suggested, it would be a nice gift tag as well. And that's a good idea. That's something I didn't think of. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, guys. And I hope, if you love it, that you will take a moment to share with your friends. And please go over to my YouTube channel. I'm going to add a link at the end of this video. And I'm just starting to build up my following right now on YouTube. I've only done a couple of video tutorials, but I plan to do more, and I would love it if you would consider following me over there. I am Shelley Penney with Twisted Fish Artisan Jewelry in partnership with Jesse James Beads. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day.